Good and bad morning for the sake of inclusion. This is the Mr. Worldly Wiseman editorial, and today we are doing a very special video. Since Across the Spider-Verse has been released, I thought I should do a special video because that movie is incredible, and Into the Spider-Verse is my favorite movie of all time. So I had to do something. I had to do something Spider-Man related. I love Spider-Man. He's my favorite. So for the concept of this video, we're going to be looking at different adaptations of Spider-Man and seeing would they be Team Miguel or Team Miles. Into the Spider-Verse was about asking who can be behind the mask of Spider-Man. Across the Spider-Verse is now asking the question, what does it mean to wear the mask? Within the movie, we see two opposing views about the identity of Spider-Man. The crux behind Spider-Man 2099's position is that struggles make Spider-Man. They mold Spider-Man, which he's right. Spider-Man is such a popular character because of the struggles he's gone through. Miles Morales is all about you need to save everyone, regardless of risk or cost, which he is right about when it comes to the identity of Spider-Man. That's why I love this movie, is because they're both right about who Spider-Man is supposed to be. But it's showing the contradictions between the two sides. There have been several iterations of Spider-Man across movies, TV shows, and games, and each of them have a different perspective when it comes to the identity of Spider-Man. That's some of the genius writing of Across the Spider-Verse. It encourages you to analyze the structure of these Spider-Man that have been written. Now, of course, I'm not going to be looking at all of the adaptations of Spider-Man. That would take a while, but if you guys like this video enough, maybe I'll do another video just like this. So let's get on this journey of finding the roster of Team 2099 or Team Morales.
Round 1.
The live-action Spideys, Maguire, Garfield, and Holland, will obviously be Team Miles. I just want to get these three out of the way right now because it's super obvious. If you've seen No Way Home, you know the answer already. No Way Home gives a far more direct answer of what Spider-Man's supposed to do. He's supposed to save everyone, even his worst enemies. To those three, it's obviously worth the cost, and that's shown very clearly in No Way Home. Well, some of you will say, hey, maybe it's unfair to look at No Way Home because that's Holland's trilogy. Let's look at the other series. What would the other series really say? They would say the exact same thing. The Sam Raimi trilogy was all about finding balance between Peter Parker's desires and Spider-Man's desires. Peter Parker's responsibilities and Spider-Man's responsibilities. At the end of Spider-Man 3, it shows that Peter Parker and Spider-Man can find a balance. There's going to be still a lot of bumps. There's still going to be a lot of struggles along the way, but there will be a balance. And as long as MJ's willing to go with that ride, as long as Spider-Man's loved ones are willing to go with the ride, Spider-Man can find happiness. I mean, just in Spider-Man 1, it's shown very clearly, very visually, when Green Goblin is hanging MJ over the bridge and that trolley of kids. Maguire saves both of them when Green Goblin said it shouldn't be possible. So yes, Maguire would be Team Miles. Garfield's movies were about the grief. It's Garfield dealing with his canon events. What does that look like? Well, from what the movies say and what Garfield said in No Way Home, it's kind of obvious he is terrible at dealing with grief, which does make him very relatable. And in those movies, regardless of the quality of the writing, it shows that Garfield is going to take that grief and he's going to use it for better means. He's going to use that grief to motivate himself to save other people. So if Garfield's presented with the chance to save his loved ones, yeah, he's gonna take it. No Way Home showed that Garfield took Gwen's death very, very hard. I'm sure he's going to want to save her if he could. I think without a doubt Garfield's going to be on Team Miles. But that does ask questions like, yeah, without Uncle Ben, most of the Spider-Man wouldn't be there. Would that really interfere with Garfield's growth? Just something to think about, just something to ponder. And yes, obviously Holland's going to be on Team Miles. Go watch No Way Home if you haven't seen the movie. Yes, he saved his villains even at a horrible cost. Yes, he's going to be Team Miles. He's going to want to save everybody no matter the risk. Let's be honest here too. those villains were definitely canon events. Like, that definitely shook up a ton of canon events. So everyone's asking for, like, oh, Spider-Man 4. Oh, we want Garfield Spider-Man. We want Amazing Spider-Man 3. I think we need to seriously consider the possibility that those universes are gone. They might be just completely gone. Those were all the live-action movies, so let's look at the cartoons.
Round 2.
The first one gonna be the Spider-Man cartoon from the 60s.
Spider-Man, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yeah, I mean, in Across the Spider-Verse, it obviously shows he is on Team 2099, but, let's really think about it. Would he actually be, if we really took and considered his character as a whole, would he really be Team 2099? Yeah, I think so. I think there's barely a thought behind that brain. I don't think he's going to really consider what's going on. I think he's just going to take what he's presented with. So yeah, 60 Spider-Man, definitely Team 2099. Now, Amazing Friend Spider-Man. This one's a lot more personal to me. But I still watched a couple episodes. I watched 2 episodes. I watched the last one, which was more about Iceman, so I didn't really get a good gauge of this Spider-Man's moral capabilities. So then I became more picky about which episode I chose. So I picked this one episode where Spider-Man falls in love with this girl from the future. And that episode just proved to me that Spider-Man is an emotional wreck in that show. My gosh. His judgment is completely overridden by his emotions. Like, completely. This Peter Parker, he meets this girl, and within hours, he is ready to go to her home. Completely banded his present time to go to the future with this girl he just met. At the end of the episode, there's this one guy from the future, and he's like, what the heck is wrong with you? You just left your whole world. Your world needs Spider-Man. What is wrong with you? There were other politics with, like, germ stuff, like the future people, they don't have white blood cells or something like that. So there's that. But still, he's like, you're a moron, Spider-Man. Go home. So I think he could be very easily swayed on both sides. I think if Miles just gave him a slight pep talk, I think Amazing Friend Spider-Man would be Team Miles. But let me just consider his place just on the very end of that episode. Because he does go home and he says, yeah, that was very selfish of me. I was taking my own concerns ahead of the concerns of the people I need to save. So because of that very ending, I'd say maybe that stuck with him, hopefully. And so just because of that, I think that aligns with Spider-Man 2090 the most, understanding that there are sacrifices that need to be made in order to be Spider-Man. So yeah, I would say Spider-Man 2099, but he is so emotionally unstable. You need to watch that guy. Now, Spider-Man from the 90s cartoon is actually a very interesting character to look at. He's a very interesting character to look at because if you didn't know, the 90s cartoon started the whole Spider-Verse movement. Across the Spider-Verse would not exist without the 90s cartoon.
I need your help.
You must help yourself. But that does not mean you will be alone. Look.
Am I going mad? This is the one that's supposed to be our leader? Give me a break. I should be in charge of this group. I'm the real Spider-Man. I don't know what kind of mind game this is, but I'm the real Spider-Man. The real Peter Parker. Guess again.
At the very end of the series, they have their own Spider-Verse where they take different versions of Peter Parker and they put them all together to fight this evil Spider-Man. Those last 2 episodes inspired a game called Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. One of the co-writers on that was a guy by the name of Dan Slott. Dan Slott started writing the Spider-Man comics. And so he's like, hey, I really like Spider-Verse. I really like the idea of the Spider-Verse, so I'm going to make my own story. Dan Slott's Spider-Verse was very different from the movies, but I think it's still a good read. Go read it. But yeah, that inspired the cartoon to make their own Spider-Verse, which in turn inspired the movie. So that's how that rabbit hole works. but it all started with the 90s cartoon. Spider-Wars were my 2 favorite episodes of the series when I watched the show. And just to see where it all ended up, it's insane. But yeah, this one is actually a little bit more interesting because it's not so cut and dry like No Way Home. By the way, I'm not dissing No Way Home. I really like that. But I just appreciate Across the Spider-Verse more contradictory questions, more interesting. I think with the 90s cartoon, there's a serious question you need to ask. And it's, did Spider-Man find MJ at the end? Now, for all those that aren't as nerdy as I am, in the 90s cartoon, MJ was thrown off a bridge, but instead of Gwen Stacy and get her neck broken, she flew into a portal. Now, later in the series, MJ came back. We all thought, oh, that's MJ. That was not MJ. It was this weird water clone, and that water clone disappeared, and that episode was responsible for a lot of trauma for me when I was younger. I had a lot of nightmares from that cartoon.
We'll get help. Warren! Warren, where the blazes are you?
Forget it, Tiger. He's gone. Oh, dear. Before I go, I want you to know just one thing. If any part of me is anything like the real Mary Jane Watson, she loves Peter Parker more than anything in the world. More than anything.
Yeah. But at the end of Spider-Wars, Madam Web tells Peter that MJ is alive, and we're gonna go find her. So I think the question you need to ask is, did he actually find MJ? Hello, this is post-production, Scott. I forgot to give some necessary context in saying that the Spider-Wars episode was, those 2 are the last episodes, and so it ended on a cliffhanger if they found Mary Jane or not. So yes, I think that Peter, if he found his MJ, he would say, you can have your cake and eat it too. But if he didn't find MJ, I think that Peter would have to consider that there are sacrifices to being Spider-Man. There are people you just can't save. So I think that's a very important question to ask, but let's not base our decision off a hypothetical, because there is a defined answer that is shown in the show. Because the way Peter beats the evil Peter in this story is not through a big fight. This evil Peter Parker has been corrupted by the Carnage symbiote, so he's just kind of Peter Parker, but better. So what he does is he takes in Uncle Ben in a universe where he survived, and he shows him to the evil Spider Carnage, evil Peter Parker guy.
I know you've had a very bad time, but in this dimension, I'm here for you. And no matter what, I love you.
I love you too, Uncle Ben.
What's wrong with him?
So I think what the 90s cartoon Spider-Man would say is that yes, there are sacrifices you need to make as Spider-Man, but ultimately there is still a chance. There's a chance to save everyone, and that is worth the risk for that fighting chance. That an evil, corrupted Peter Parker, if he can come back to his senses, then maybe there's a way to work around this canon events idea. So yes, I am confident that the 90s Spider-Man would be Team Morales based on what's shown in the show. But maybe Mary Jane gets in the way of that. Maybe. We don't know. I really hope that the 90s cartoon makes an appearance in Beyond the Spider-Verse, because he is actually, very important to the whole Spider-Verse mythos. Like I said, he was the first one to do the whole thing. He's a straight-up veteran of the Spider-Verse. Everyone should go to him and just, ask him, so, what do you think about this? Everyone should be going to him for advice. And that's why I want him in the sequel. And I don't want him to have, a small line or little cameo saying, oh, I'm from the 90s. No, I want to have a genuine role. Small one. I don't want him to get away of the whole story, but, a small one where maybe you kind of confide in him. Similar to the line Spectacular Spider-Man had in Across the Spider-Verse, but maybe more genuine, maybe with more heart. It's yeah, this is the guy who started it all. Anyway, that's just what I want.
Anybody care about what I want?
I do.
Shut up. Get out.
Now we're going to do the MTV show Spider-Man. This one was actually very difficult for me to figure out. This was like the last one I figured out, because at the very end of the show, and it only got one season, at the very end of the show, Peter Parker gives up Spider-Man. And so what I had to do is I had to really figure out, what does that mean? What does giving up Spider-Man mean for his position in the whole lineup? Because giving up Spider-Man may mean that there are struggles that come with Spider-Man. There are costs that come to being Spider-Man, and it's just not worth it. They're unchanging, and maybe this Peter has just come to accept that and think that Spider-Man is just not going to change anything anyway. So maybe that's an argument you can use for 2099. But then you also have to consider that, would he do anything to change that? Because maybe Miles could give him hope that there is a way to change that Spider-Man can do something. But here's what I've come up with. So at the very end of the first season, again, that was the only season I had, Spider-Man is mind-controlled into killing this girl he's dating. It was an original character named Indy, and none of you are going to know who she is if you haven't seen the show. And probably not even care. So, wait, no, never mind. He didn't kill her, but he, severely hurt her. He threw her off a building. And so, overcome with this guilt, Peter Parker gives up being Spider-Man. Now, it was kind of obvious that if they were going to have a second season, that of course he was going to retake the mantle of being Spider-Man. But again, let's try to give a definite answer. Let's try not to stick in the hypotheticals. Let's just go based right off the ending of this show. So based on the ending of the series, this is what I think this Peter Parker would say. I think he would say that canon events are not responsible for people. He would say Spider-Man is responsible for people. And it's been proven to him that Spider-Man is incapable of saving people. So if I think he's going to be presented with this dilemma, he's going to side with Miles, because he's going to tell 2099, he's going to tell Miguel, no, these canon events are not responsible for people. I am. It's my power that needs to save these people. And hey, maybe these canon events won't even exist if Spider-Man never existed. Maybe Spider-Man is the real problem here. So I think he's more of a third party, actually. I think he would have his own thing where he just says, just stop being Spider-Man and people will stop being hurt. But to stick with the rules I've set, I would say he's most closely linked with Miles. Okay, so I'm going to cut this video short. I had a lot more Spider-Man to talk about, but unfortunately I forgot I was going to a wedding in Iowa. So, yeah, I'm not going to be able to edit the rest of this video, but I still want to get this video out while there's a bunch of Spider-Verse hype still. So I'm just going to show half of this video, and then I'll get the rest of the video out later. It's very late, so sorry if I sound crazy. So goodbye. Stay unimpressed with the fools, guys, and don't forget to fear the Lord.
I won't kill you.